Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your host Edward McQueen and April Garner Davis.
That's what live means, right? Whoa, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our program, and it's such a pleasure to have, our guest today, and in view of all the natural or unnatural things that have been happening for the past few days from a weather perspective, we thought that we could bring you all some information that always, as usual, the World Community Magazine will always have bring you news that you can use. Okay, so without further ado, April, can you take it from here? Indeed, our brother, and let us know. I'm having some difficulties in the back of me.
I gotcha. Okay. So welcome everyone, and while Brother Edward handles his technical difficulties in the background, we just want to start by saying welcome to our special guests who are tuning in with us tonight. And when I say special guests, I mean our audience members. You know, we have special guests who are always here talking about topics of interest and critical issues, but we really appreciate the support of the community and special guests who join us to be a part of our discussions and to welcome our guests who are coming to educate us and inform us about things that are going on in the area. So I just want to give a special shout out to Verdell Beckman out of Columbia watching with us this evening. Verdell, thank you so much for joining us and for being a part of the WCM Live community. We really do appreciate you taking the time almost every single Tuesday now. On the rare occasion that Verdell is not with us, it's because, you know, life is lifing and things are happening, and for whatever reason, it takes her away from the screen or from the computer or her phone or whatever. But, you know, she definitely makes it her business to stay in touch with what's going on back home in this community. So we thank you so much for joining us. And I just want to say to any viewers who have not checked in to let us know that you're watching and where you're from, why don't you drop us a little, comment to let us know that you're watching, say hello from wherever you're from, and give a warm welcome to our special guest. So tonight, we have with us none other than community advocate for Bucksport, South Carolina. This man is constantly working to make sure that the residents of Bucksport, his family, people that he can call family down in Bucksport, are taken care of in terms of the information and raising awareness that they need in order to deal with certain issues that are impacting that small but historic community. And so we have Kevin Mishoe with us tonight, and we're going to have a conversation about this flooding in Horry County that once again is impacting the Bucksport community in a way that, is just marked with devastation. And we're going to have a serious conversation about it tonight to, just really kind of dig into what is taking place, what is happening, and if there are any real solutions and what people can expect from future weather events, Tim McCray, thank you so much for watching. We really do appreciate it. Hey, Tim, thank you for joining us. And please share across social media so that, everyone else can get in on this wonderful conversation. So I'm going to bring Brother Edward back on. Give me the thumbs up if you handle your technical issue. Okay.
Yeah.
Bring it, Brother Edward.
We're good.
All right. And we might as well just go ahead and bring Kevin on and get him involved in this as well. How are you, Kevin?
Doing well. And Brother McQueen, that's a good technical issue to have. The grands in the background, man, the love and unity of family.
Man.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can tell you're working, Brother Edward. I actually see you pink through here. He's loving it too, Kevin. He's loving it too.
Well, what can I say?
Yeah, it's cute. It's cute. Well, Kevin, thank you for joining us tonight. Like we said, we really do appreciate you putting in the time and effort to make sure your community stays informed. And of course, we just recently dealt with Tropical Storm Debby. And the reality is that even though Debby came inland as a tropical storm, she did wreak havoc and dumped a lot of water that turned into this flooding issue that we now have. It's always exacerbated by weather events, whether it's just a torrential downpour of rain or whatever. But when we have to deal with tropical storms and hurricanes, you just never know what is going to happen. And even though these weather events continue to happen and people know that there's a potential storm on the horizon, especially during hurricane season, it just seems like we're never really prepared. And when I say we, I mean, the communities that are constantly flooded whenever something like this happens. And so we invited Kevin here tonight to just talk about what's going on in Bucksport and even in any other area that he's capable of talking about tonight. That is subject to this current flooding. And, I'll even say that even after the tropical storm was over, Horry County was at an OPCON 1 at one point, just dealing with the flooding issue. And so, and I know that people are probably hearing those types of alerts and not really knowing what that means. So we're going to dig into it as much as possible and also talk about, the impact of this particular storm. And also whether or not there's a real solution to the flooding. So, Kevin, thank you for joining us again. It's a pleasure to have you.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to be with you, April, and Brother McQueen. We've had conversations in the past on different subjects, but of those subjects, the flooding of Bucksport is near and dear to my heart. And before we dive into the details of that flooding, I think it's important that the audience know why it should matter. Because a lot of times if it's not happening to you or to me, then we have a tendency to be removed from that particular event or subject. Right. But Bucksport, first of all, is one of the oldest communities in Horry County. Out of Bucksport, a lot of the migration that we have today, the families, the surrounding families in Saugastee and Conway and Aner and Loris, and even much further, parts of North Carolina, those families originated right here in the Bucksport area. And so Bucksport has a great historic significance to the family and the unity of the African American people in this area. So very few intact, predominantly African American communities still exist today for so many reasons. The flooding, the taking of our lands and the development of it that is not being done by us. That is also a result of the opportunity that flooding gives developers that keeps our communities at an unfair or disadvantage when it comes to development.
So Kevin, I recall visibly the areas that were flooded the last time we had this great flood in Bucksport. Are those same areas impacted now, or has it broadened?
The flooding here has a pattern, and as we know, water follow the path of least resistance. That Bucksport, Horry County, sits at the bottom of the flow from the upstates. So right. One of the reasons why we can still be so impacted and not get a lot of precipitation sometimes in our area, and 3, 4, 5 days later, we're flooded. Why? Because all that water flows downhill. And we're like a bowl here in Bucksport, Saugastee, Horry County area. We're the stopping point. We're the resting point for all that water. So since 2016, we right after about 2015, 2016, Bucksport had its first flooding. There's a lot of speculations to why that might be. One of the major events is we had a large construction project that was done in 2015. Prior to that, Bucksport was not flooded. There was one flooding in the early 1920s. They called the Fresh, and that was the only documented flooding in Bucksport until after 2015. So 2016, Matthew flooded Bucksport for the very first time, and we got to see and feel firsthand the devastation of flooding.
But given the, I don't know if you, I'm sure you do recall the last big meeting they had there with all of the, I'm quote for lack of a better word, flooding officials. People were from the, seemed like they were from the Corps of Engineers and so forth, and they had this meeting at the Jane Fraser Center. And they proposed, I have the video in my archive. I think they were proposing to build something new at the end of 701 there before the new bridge, before you start to go across the new bridge. They were going to build, I believe it was a dike or something, or was that true? What's the give us a follow up on that for those who were not there and for those who just forgot about it.
Yeah, of course we know that in Horry County, Bucksport is not the only place that floods. There are several other locations, but we were told in 2017, right after our first flooding in Matthew, of all the places that flood, there was a possibility that Bucksport flooding could be mitigated, simply because the way the water followed the topography or the landscape. It brought it across a road in Bucksport called Big Bull Landing Road. And that was the pattern every single time that it flooded. The Waccamaw would build up. It would stop the flow of the PD, because as you know, we're flanked by the Waccamaw and the PD. Would push the PD over its limits, and that water would go across Big Bull Landing Road, follow all the way down the backside of Bucksport to Martin Luther, and then come back up as far as Mishoe Road or to the Fraser Center. That was always his pattern. So armed with that information, Horry County and the Army Corps of Engineers began to put together a plan that would stop that water or hold that water right there at Big Bull Landing Road, and therefore stop the flooding in Bucksport. Now, what happened between 2017 and 2024? Because recent media has broadcasted that at this point in time, that dam project was executed, and later in our conversation, I'd like to discuss the results of that, but it took that amount of time between 2017 and 2024 for something to happen. So I know we're going to get to the question about why. I'll let you ask it when you decide that we need to discuss that.
I guess it's kind of throwing me off base now. So you're not prepared.
I can go into it if you want me to go ahead and start with that. But if you have additional questions,
no, it's good. You can go into it.
Okay. Well, let's dive into it. All right. Mm-hmm. What begins the process is once the idea is placed on the table, then there's a lot of red tape that has to be done in order to execute it. You don't just start digging because you have an idea. Because what you're talking about, in especially in Bucksport, is you're going to be crossing protected property, wetlands. People are very sensitive about wetlands. Conservation groups are very sensitive about wetlands. The Army Corps of Engineers is very sensitive about wetlands. It almost takes an act of Congress to get them to reverse and approve a project that goes across wetlands. So I know the citizens have been very frustrated over the many years. I was as well, until I began to understand the process, until I began to converse with as you were saying, Mr. McQueen, the powers to be, the officials in our local government. But the citizens have a right to be a bit cautious, suspicious, simply because the history of divestment in our communities is long for our local governments. Where they could get away with not investing in low to moderate income communities, they've done so. At the time we addressed the first issue of the flooding, which began about the what we say down in the South, ditches. You know, we call them ditches. The ditches that channels the water through the community had not been addressed in almost 40 years at the time we came out of Matthew and went into Florence. Our involvement as a community began after the flooding of Florence, when we had already had so many of our local citizens that had not recovered and still have not recovered from Matthew. Houses that was lost, that are of people who have been in this community all their lives, have still not been restored from Matthew. So the devastation of flooding is long term, and we began to try to do anything we could to mitigate future flooding by complaining, which is the process, to our local government, that we need those tax dollars and that grant money that's coming, trickling from the state and from federal government, working in our communities, addressing our problem. And our main problem at the time was the flooding.
So the issue is still an issue. I guess the grant money is not trickling down to places that are needed, like Bucksport.
That's right, and only till the wheel squeaks. Right. That's how you get some grease. Okay, so back to what I was saying about the community becomes, when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, that's what it took to get the heirs and the attention of local government. At the time, we got off to a rough start, but Orton Bellamy was our county councilman at the time, and Orton really began to show a real interest and concern for the citizens of Bucksport. He took our fight to county council and represented, I think, this community well on that issue. So Bucksport then received a little close to $800,000 for this project that we're now talking about. Little Lamb community, which is located adjacent or across 701, also received grant money. Make of it what you will, but they received $1.4 million for their mitigation process.
So where's this located? Where's Little Lamb community located?
Little Lamb is just on the other side of 701. So if you're coming down 701, you're heading towards Georgetown, Bucksport is going to be on your left. Little Lamb community is on the right side of 701. So they do get some flooding, not to the degree that Bucksport has, but it's a significant amount of water that they get as well as a result of the PD overflowing.
So Kevin, that community, as an example, receiving $1.4 million for, you said, their mitigation. What do mitigation plans look like? What are they supposed to do? Is it to build up the land, to haul in dirt? What are they supposed to do within that mitigation project?
It is the building up of a natural infrastructure. This particular project, April, was not designed to be the kind of dam. When we think of dam, we think of these big concrete walls and with release valves that let the water out. It's not like that. What they did is they used the natural landscape, which was that road.
Right.
And they dug that out and built up berms, high enough, tall enough, and strong enough to hold the risings of the waters in a flood event. But here was the issue that we had that also kind of slowed the project down. They got conservation groups in, such as Coastal Conservation. The Coastal Conservation League, which was one of the organizations that led the charge on making certain that this project was not a Band-Aid. It was not something that was going to harm the community, and it was going to be a long-term solution. So this particular dam is designed to handle a Matthew level flood. Okay, now Matthew was somewhere around 5.2 feet or something like that above flood levels. It is not designed to handle a Florence level event. And if we look at the data, storms are getting larger, more intense, and bringing more precipitation. This is a result of climate change. So it's not a matter if we'll get a Florence level event. It's just a matter of when.
That's right.
So one of the questions that we brought up in the past meeting that we had just the day before the cresting was, is this project expandable? Can you supplement this so that you can add to it to get us at a Florence level event? We were assured that it was, but when the engineers, that was the engineer company, Thomas and Hutton was the engineers, when they came to us, they said that the only thing that they could design was something at that time that would stop a Matthew level event. So any mitigation is, in my opinion, is good mitigation, but we have to have, a long-term vision when you're dealing with something like this, because all it takes is either an event that's going to be larger than Florence that would put us right back in the same situation we've always been in, if not worse. And the other issue, when you build a dam, you got to keep in mind, this is what happened in New Orleans. When a dam or a dike breaks, it is much different than getting that slow rising of water, giving you enough time to get out of harm's way. When a dam or dike breaks, you got a rushing, unstoppable force of water coming at a high rate of speed. And what would give me what we used to get as 24 hours to get out of harm's way is down to 1 hour.
Whoa. Okay.
So
wow.
It is important that the engineering process is exact, Okay, and that it does exactly what they say it would do. Now, it did that. It did that this past week. It held. Bucksport did not get any significant amount of water in any homes, any yards, and it was a success. So my hat's off to the county. I'm going to give credit where credit's due. The engineers knew what they were talking about, and we were very pleased that our community remained safe during this particular flooding crisis.
Mm-hmm. So you all had a mandatory community meeting, I think it was on the 14th, to discuss this and I'm assuming other issues. What were the sentiments of the residents? Like, were there questions, and what concerns did they raise? Was there any discussion about, like you said, the next time, even though this mitigation project and what the engineers have done seem to be substantial for this particular event, knowing that, like you said, when the next event happens, are residents feeling that they need to do something more extreme, or just batten down the hatches and see what happens?
Well, April, needless to say, if you've never been in a flood or event or anticipating a flood, there's always a high degree of anxiety. Everybody's trying to figure out, what can I save? I mean, myself, I have as a vocation, I farm. So I have goats, 13 of them, chickens. I'm at a panic trying to figure out how to get them up off the ground. I'm trying to build all kind of platforms because, first of all, anybody know anything about goats? They hate water. so
the milk is good.
Oh, it is. So we do the whole 9 yards. I'll have to get you some of that milk too. But they hate water. Saving your livestock, saving your farm, saving your crops, saving your property. Don't even think about sandbags. I remember the first flood, they gave us sandbags, and we actually, in our naivety, thought that was gonna help. Well, guess what? That water went through, around, over, under sandbags as if they weren't even there. When the water receded, we just had big bags of wet sand. So back to the sentiments of the community. They remembered that, and they went there very frustrated because a lot of them, like I said, lost a lot of property, had a lot of damage, and we still have residents that have not been able to reunite with the community because their homes was totally destroyed. And because of heirs property, which is something we talked about on this show, was unable to receive the assistance from FEMA at that time. Now, since then, FEMA has changed some of its rules because of heirs property, and that would probably make an entirely different show. But because of heirs property, they weren't able to get the assistance to get back into their homes. So those people went to that meeting on the 15th with that in mind. They were frustrated. There was a few points of contention, but then we have to also remember, because of the history with, like I said, the lack of investment in African American communities, that was also on the hearts and minds, especially of our elderly residents that can really remember what it was like to be discriminated against and to be left out and to be isolated. So yes, but I think we were able to work through that. A lot of the people got their questions answered. The county was very optimistic about the results of the project, and that it would do what they said it would do. I'm trying to remember David. David is the assistant engineer for Horry County. He was the one that did most of the addressing of this issue, and he said, I'm 99. This was the day before the flood was to begin. 99% sure that you won't have a problem. You always have to leave that 1% out there. So he did leave that 1% out there. And amazingly, the 99% didn't manifest.
So again, that project was pretty much guaranteed to withstand a Matthew level. But what about I think you said Florence was worse. What are they doing in terms of preparing for the absolute worst? Is there an engineering structure that can, be developed to, I guess, kind of elevate what's been done already so that, a Florence level event will not cause the destruction that it did before? Or is that just a wait and see kind of thing? I'm hearing that, a solution has been put in place that worked and it was effective this time. But again, when we think about the worst to come, what are you hearing as far as what can be done to, refortify or even amplify what's happening or what's happened already?
April, I think that's a very good question, and the reason why we should really, as a community, be giving that a lot of thought is because now people get complacent. They get comfortable. They said, well, we've handled the problem. That's enough to get everybody off of our backs. But really, this is the juncture in which we decide whether or not we're going to get complacent as a community. You can't, because there is no real talk about that phase 2 to get us beyond a Florence level. But I know it's impossible to try to predict the worst case scenario, because there could be you can get the dam up to that Florence level, and then there'll be another named storm that's even bigger than Florence, and then our next goal is to get above that. But we have to, I think it's important that if we have a reference point, we know that storms get as intense as Florence. I think that should be a top priority and a goal, because we know such a storm exists now. It's happened already. Correct. So as a community, we should be bringing our concerns, and we will bring our concerns to our officials. Don't wait. We actually got this done by the skin of our teeth. This dam was built literally the day before the flooding was to start.
Wow.
So what if that one day didn't happen? Then see, so now is the time to be proactive. From what I understand, the permits weren't fully in hand at the time that they did this project. They were still a few signatures off of full compliance. But I think that they were really concerned the wrath that would have come from the community had this project been in the pipelines as long as it was, and they allowed this community to flood.
Right.
So the decision was made: do we want to, do this project and ask for forgiveness, or do we want this community to flood and feel the wrath of that going? Because there was no way, with the attention that Bucksport had gotten from national media on flooding, there's no way that this wouldn't have not reached the governor, if not all the way to the White House, because we would have definitely started with our state house. Matter of fact, we did have Representative Senator Sabb came down for that particular meeting. So we had representation all the way from the county level all the way up to several officials in the state that was here to make certain that Bucksport did not flood.
Mm-hmm. So you've definitely leaned into the question that Priscilla Fuller asked. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Priscilla, which is, how can we unite to support this effort? So, as a community, like you said, we really don't want to become complacent and act like, we have time, because we don't. It's like things should be happening even now in preparation for what could possibly happen. But, aside from making sure that the community stays on the legislators, the legislators, that it, is talking to the powers that be that are responsible for the engineering, that they, do land studies or, flood analysis or whatever to figure out what the next phase is. Is there anything else that the community can do to, first of all, show a unified front, but also to empower themselves so that if none of this comes to be, and they have to, survival of the fittest, try to figure out how to make it through the next event, what can be done at this point, or what should be done at this point?
Thank you. That is a good question. What we have to remember, April, that this is not a one-person effort. The reason that things were done is this community and surrounding communities. It wasn't just the members of Bucksport. It was surrounding support from Sand Ridge and Conway, and and different partnerships. And we had Furman, we had University, we had Coastal Carolina, we had conservation groups, partnerships, American Rivers. We built the partnership infrastructure that brought the pressure as a group, as a united front. And that's what we always have to keep in mind. There is no eyes in this. It's all about we and about us and about teamwork. Get these affiliations, these organizations. There are so many of them out there that's eager to help. Every place from the NAACP Justice League, like I said, some of the conservation groups, American Rivers. We have had at least 3 colleges from South Carolina and North Carolina that have participated in helping us to put together proposals that helped us with even with our presentations that we took to county council. And of course, the Association for the Betterment of Bucksport has names and contacts that we would be glad to share with any local area, because it's not just our issue is flooding, but you may have other issues, where environmental concerns, are they dumping, are they toxics in your area, because our communities have always been used as dumping sites because we presented the least problem as far as resistance, because a lot of times we didn't know where to go, who to talk to. So becoming affiliated with Organizations that know the system, that had it not been for a lot of them, we wouldn't have gotten this project brought to Bucksport. So if I have to start doing this in some kind of chronological order, I would say, first of all, make partnerships. Build partnerships with these organizations. Number 2, keep your community informed. People can't act if they don't know what's going on. Absolutely. Put mechanisms in place, just like this particular station. You're keeping people informed. You're keeping people aware. If we're not doing that, then a lot of times we suffer in silence. Some of us have the same problems that somebody else is having, and nobody really knows about it. That's what brings us together. So that would be my suggestion as far as beginning the process, the affiliations, and a mechanism for keeping your community informed, because that's what makes county council act. When you show up in numbers, you get results.
I noticed that when I first came back to Conway, and I visited Bucksport, I was introduced to the Betterment, the Association for the Betterment of Bucksport. Kudos to you guys, man. You've been very effective, apparently, and if you in forging partnerships, that's a good place to start.
That's right. That is. You know, as the scripture, as iron sharpens iron. You know, we need those affiliations, and that's how we get things done. But if you're out there thinking that you're Martin Luther and so many of our leaders that did great things, it wasn't because they were doing this by themselves.
Correct.
You know, it was the foot soldiers. It was the people that actually was filling up the jails that made change in the civil rights movement. So the community coming together I think was the primary reason they showed up. And when we went to county council for the first time in a long time, I saw our community represent themselves well by showing up in numbers. You don't have to be the greatest orator. You don't have to be the person, giving the speech or yelling the loudest. Sometimes half the battle is showing up, and I think that's what has really helped, our cause to get something done.
Yeah, showing up indicates that you care.
That's right.
Indicates that you care, and you show your concern that way. And so, well, it's good to know that Bucksport was not impacted in a way, whereas we're dealing with, the devastation the type of devastation that we've seen in the past. And so, yes, as a community, we got to continue to work, as you said, to build up these partnerships and to stay informed of what's happening. Now, all of the flooding that is happening in, Socastee and other parts of the area, is there any possibility that any of that water will impact Bucksport? That water has to go somewhere. So, what we're hearing about over in the Bucksport area and these communities that are completely flooded out, what's going to happen, I guess, over the next few weeks with that moisture? And again, is there anything that the residents of Bucksport need to watch out for?
What the dam was able to do was to block the natural path that the water takes into the Bucksport community. Now, of course, we are flanked or at our rear is the Waccamaw, which separates us from Socastee, that river. So they're impacted by the risings on one side, and we're impacted by the risings on the other side. So unfortunately, or fortunately, there is no other mitigation that could be done with that. Okay. It's just you have to let it go run its natural course, which is to dissipate, to evaporate, and get back to normal. But I'd like to mention something else, if I could, April. There's so many nuances to this flooding thing that impacts a community. When we flooded with Matthew, and especially Florence, one of the first projects that was also called a mitigation, but it was called a grant mitigation, is we were offered to sell our property to get out of harm's way. That was one of the solutions. The dam was not the first solution. The first solution was to sell. And if you know anything about our history, one of the things that your forefathers tell you, your parents and your grandparents, don't sell the land. They're not making any more. Keep the land. Hold on to the land. At all costs, hold on to the land. So fortunately, the residents did that. there was I don't think we had one, if any, individuals that took up the grant process and sold property, which was good. But here's the bad thing about that,
Absolutely.
Mr. McQueen, is that we need to understand better the process of economic development. Because what is happening is we're being weighted out. Eventually, you're going to be overtaxed. You're going to be under invested, or the divestment in these communities that would allow the community to erode if you don't stay on top of it. And pretty soon, that person in the next generation that does not have ties to the land will let it go in a tax sale. That's normally one of the biggest processes in which we lose our land. So if we learn to create economic opportunities in our communities, meaning build business, build projects such as housing. You can be an individual that can develop, put apartments into an area that gives the community and its residents. We're losing our best residents because there's no place to live. Once these are graduate from high school or they graduate from a university, they can't come back to Bucksport and build, because the new regulations from FEMA now gives you the blueprint to build all property up above the flood levels. So even if we get some subsequent flooding in the future, we also have that secondary requirement, which is to build up the land before you ever put a house on it. So this is a good place to invest. We just don't know how. When I say we, I know it starts with me. If it's to be, it must start with me. But what I'm saying is, go back to, we don't do it alone. We first talk about it. We bring awareness to it, and then we do something about it. And that's how we keep our communities and our historical values and the camaraderie of family. Man, don't you just love the areas where everybody knows everybody and everybody speaks to everybody? You're not talking to somebody that came down from New York or Pennsylvania, and you don't know their family, you don't know their children, you don't know their parents. Bucksport and surrounding areas and Sand Ridge and St. Louis and Ana, we still have those pockets of community where family is paramount. It's number one, and we still hold that as a tradition. So that's that's my vision for Bucksport. I'd like to see it remain that way.
Well, Kevin, I mean, it's a huge challenge, not just for citizens of Bucksport in order to keep your residents there. I mean, that trickles all the way down to the lack of industry that could attract or provide jobs in some kind of manner to keep people there and don't leave their land and housing and everything that was given to them by being in there. I'm sure there's a lot of cases there. Yeah, but you need resources to continue that on. That what our parents have done, grandparents. I mean, there's a house. I mean, I've seen beautiful homes in Bucksport. Really. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah. But to sustain that, and for the next generation to sustain that, they're gonna need just education, not just education, but they need education and access to capital for which to make that and make that a better community in the surrounding community. Okay, that can happen by way of grants. I understand. If you lay out the adequate reason for needing the grant,
That's right.
Just that simple.
There's many grants out there that address this issue, Mr. McQueen, and I'm glad you brought that up. And I actually saw somebody said the Burgess community. You're right. I can't believe I've gone through this conversation and not talk about the great Burgess community, which was where a lot of my family, migrated across the river when they were using that river access to go, over the Burgess. So we have a need to unite these communities and work together. When they started talking about the SAIL project, everybody knows, once again, the path of least resistance. That bridge is coming through the Burgess community and through the Bucksport community. We've seen many of our minority communities, and I think you actually, Brother McQueen, did a show about the SAIL back some time ago. But I've seen so many of our Black communities that are destroyed at the foot of a bridge or a road that runs through the community. And that's all done also under that emergency plan, which is to get people out of the area in the event of flooding or hurricane. Once again, it affects our communities. The flooding affects our communities. Buyouts affects our communities. So the need to educate, like you said, to partner. And these aren't Black organizations. I'm sure that a lot of your audience, I heard you mention Tim McCrae was one of the listeners tonight. Tim is such a diligent worker in the communities and is loaded with information. There's so many people like him that we need to stay united with a common cause, a common goal, and you can get things done, and you can get those grants. Some of the best grant writers I know, probably some of them are your listeners. Tell us how we get those grants. Let's submit applications each and every year. If we don't get them, first you don't succeed, try again. We need to be, like you said, getting the resources and using them to better our communities, reduce the pain and suffering of our residents. And that's how other communities are doing it. They're using those resources. They're going after them and they're getting them. So we need to be doing the same thing.
Wow. Okay, but Kevin, you've been so well. The reason why I believe we tapped, especially April, tapped into you. She realizes the magnitude of your resources in terms of information and keeping the county and the communities up to date on that. Because what you say, some of the things could be life and death for some people. Okay, it depends on how you come across. Okay. And it helps them to make an informed decision, regarding flooding. So I really appreciate your knowledge, and hopefully we can get you back on here again. You talked about, I'll just say this, and then we'll kind of close out things. You mentioned heirs property. That's a challenge, I believe, in order to move things forward. Is that one of the major challenges that is a major challenge for some of the grant authorities, the people who want to give money, right? So look, we'll put it at another time, but
sure.
That's one of the things we need to talk about. We're going to get somebody on here who writing grants and have them talk about it. We already have
absolutely.
From a legal perspective, the magnitude of what heirs property is, okay, and heir and wills and so forth. So we're gonna have them back on again, okay.
That would be great.
Together, man. We need to, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Look,
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
And I'd like to I'd like to issue a challenge to community organizations that have the capacity to help the residents of Bucksport, the Burgess community, anyone who's interested in coming together to, as Priscilla Fuller said, create a united front to figure out how to create more solutions to the problems. Because, you know, the engineering work, that can certainly be done, but then there are other things to, you know, Kevin's point, in the form of education and awareness that also need to take place, you know, almost concurrently. You know, all this needs to happen at the same time, you know. And I just reached out to Tiffany Andrews of the Myrtle Beach branch of the NAACP, just asking a simple question: Would the NAACP be willing to partner with the communities in Bucksport and Burgess communities to create economic development workshops? And she was like, "Yes, let's talk about it." So it's as simple as an ask. It's as simple as an ask. And so, Kevin, I will share that.
You're right.
Now that'll preach. That's a word right there. So, Kevin, I will pass to you Tiffany's information. And so anyway, it's as simple as that. And, you know, we do have resources like Brother Tim that you mentioned and others who, you know, they may not have any, you know, monetary resources, but they have influence and they know how to extend into their networks to find other people and sources of things. And so, you know, that's really what networking is all about. It's what collaboration and partnership is all about. And, you know, we'll continue to do what we need to do in order to make sure that you have a platform to come on and talk about the things that impact, you know, Bucksport, Burgess, or whatever communities, Kevin, you're willing to work for, because you definitely are a willing party. And so we just thank you for your advocacy in the communities, and, you know, just keep doing the good work. I shared that picture on our promo this week, and that was from Post and Courier Myrtle Beach several years ago, and you had a mask on that said "Good Work." And we know that good trouble, and you know, we know John Lewis wanted us to get into that good trouble, and you continue to do that. So yeah, just let's make it happen. And, you know, those of you who are watching tonight, if you know of any resources or organizations or agencies or just, you know, information, be it brick and mortar or online, get in touch with Kevin and let him know. Ashley Cowan says, "Thank you, April and Mr. McQueen." And Kevin, great to see you all again. We thank you, Ashley, for watching, and Shirley Wiggins and Burl McQueen, Verdell, Priscilla, everybody. And, you know, you're part of this village, so spread the word about this. Kevin asked earlier if this broadcast is available somewhere. It is always available on YouTube, our YouTube channel, which is WCM Live Radio, I believe it is. And I'll share that, as a matter of fact, before we leave. But also go to WCMmagazine.net and you can watch this broadcast for the next week. We typically will change it out on the evening when we get ready for a new show. But Kevin, we'll be more than happy to share this information anywhere. And thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. And a shout out to you guys. If it's not for organizations and broadcasts like this, we would be left in the dark on a lot of issues. So you guys are influencing our communities in such a great way. So thank you for everything you do.
Absolutely. That reflects on our title, Community Magazine.
Yes, it does.
It's about the community, man. I mean,
yes, sir. You do. And you do a great job of it. Thank you.
So we just, okay. Kudos to April for being part of that. Kudos to April.
Yeah. April, you the man. Okay, the girl, the lady.
I don't think you meant that.
I'm just
appreciate it, Kevin. Brother Ellen and I make a pretty good team. You know, Brother Ellen and Sister Joelle invited me to be a part of this more than 10 years ago. More than 10 years ago now.
Oh, man.
10 years. And, you know, it's kind of in the blood now. I don't think I can get away from it, especially when we're doing this kind of thing. This is so pertinent in the community. So this is my give back to the community, and I appreciate it. And again, for those of you who are watching, keep in mind that we're always trying to figure out what the next best topic needs to be, what we need to share on these shows. So if you have topics of interest, critical issues, things that you're hearing about in the community, and you want us to bring a special guest on to talk more about it or dig into it or whatever, hit us up, let us know. And we can certainly find someone who's willing to talk about just about everything from A to Z. We don't, we're nonpartisan. We don't have a preference of who comes on the show. We don't invite controversy or anything like that, but sometimes you have to have deeper dive and uncomfortable conversations about certain things. But it's this type of information that educates the community that really is a part of our thrust with WCM Live and Brother Edward with World Community Magazine. So, just give us some suggestions and we'll continue to use this platform in the way that it's intended. And thank you again, Kevin, and the best to you and your family. Your resilience shows, and we appreciate you. So, so to everyone who has joined us tonight, thank you so much for being with us, and we'll be back next Tuesday night, 7 p.m. I don't know what the topic is right now, but we'll come up with something.
Right. We'll come up.
We'll come up with something. But anyway, take care, everyone, and we really appreciate everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook.